My parents stole my $75,000 college fund to pay for my sister's wedding. I worked double shifts and lived on instant noodles just to survive. 8 years later, I invited them to my penthouse. When my parents smiled and said, "See, helping your sister first was the right choice," I looked them in the eye and said, "No, it just made me rich enough to never need you again." Then I called the security and said, "Show them out." I, 26M, still remember the exact moment my life split into before and after. I was 19, sitting in the financial aid office at State, watching the administrator's face shift from polite to concerned as she reviewed my account. There was supposed to be $75,000 there. My grandfather had set it up before he died when I was 12, made it crystal clear in his will that the money was for my education and nothing else. He'd worked construction his whole life, saved every penny he could, and he wanted me to have opportunities he never did. The fund was in my parents' names as custodians until I turned 18, then it was supposed to transfer to me. The administrator turned her monitor toward me. The balance read $437. My stomach dropped. I asked her to check again, told her there had to be a mistake. She pulled up the transaction history, and we both watched as withdrawal after withdrawal scrolled past. $50,000 gone in one lump some 8 months ago. Another $20,000 scattered across various dates. The rest dribbled out in smaller amounts over the previous year. Every withdrawal was authorized by my father. I drove home in a daze. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. When I walked into the house, my parents were in the living room watching television like it was any other Tuesday evening. My sister was upstairs, probably planning more wedding details with her fiancé. I asked them about the money. Just like that, straight out, because I couldn't believe they'd actually done what the transaction history suggested. My mother looked at my father. My father muted the TV and told me to sit down. That's when I knew. He explained it like he was doing me a favor. My sister's wedding was important, a once-in-a-lifetime event. The venue she wanted was booked solid for 2 years unless they could pay a premium to bump another party. The dress she'd fallen in love with was custom couture. They'd already committed to everything before they realized how much it would actually cost. The wedding was in 3 months. What were they supposed to do, disappoint her? I reminded him the money was for my education. That Grandpa had specifically stated that in his will. My father waved this off. I could get student loans like everyone else, he said. Financial aid, scholarships, work-study programs. My sister couldn't take out a loan for a wedding that had already been planned. Besides, I'd been accepted to State, not Harvard. It wasn't like I needed $75,000 for a state school. I pointed out that the money wasn't legally theirs to take. That Grandpa had left it to me. My mother finally spoke up. She said I was being selfish. Family helps family. My sister had always been there for me growing up, hadn't she? Didn't I want her to have a beautiful wedding day to remember? They'd already spent the money anyway, so what did I expect them to do about it now? I asked if they planned to pay it back. My father laughed. Pay it back with what money? Did I think they were rich? The wedding had cost them everything they had in savings too. I should be grateful they'd invested in family instead of wasting it on fancy schools. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. Upstairs, I could hear my sister on the phone, excitedly describing her centerpiece arrangements to someone. She had to have known. There was no way she didn't know where the money came from. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead with them or take them to court or create drama that would somehow make me the villain. I was going to survive, and then I was going to succeed so completely that they'd never be able to pretend they hadn't betrayed me. I enrolled at State anyway, took out maximum student loans, filled out every scholarship application I could find, and got a job at a warehouse working overnight shifts. I moved into the cheapest apartment I could find, a studio in a building that should have been condemned, with 3 other guys rotating through shifts on 2 mattresses. I worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., slept until noon, went to classes, studied in the library until my next shift, and repeated. I lived on instant noodles, rice, and whatever free food I could scavenge from campus events. I lost 20 pounds in the first semester. My roommates were convinced I was going to drop out by Christmas. I didn't. I didn't go to my sister's wedding either. Told my parents I had to work. My mother called me heartless. My father said I was holding a grudge over nothing. My sister sent me a text saying she was disappointed I'd chosen money over family. The irony was almost funny. I doubled down. Picked up a second job doing freelance coding work online, teaching myself programming languages in whatever spare hours I could find. Turned out I had a knack for it. By sophomore year, I was making more from freelance work than from the warehouse. By junior year, I dropped the warehouse job and was working 20 hours a week on contract projects while carrying a full course load. My parents called occasionally, mostly when they needed something. My father's car broke down. Could I chip in for repairs? My mother needed a new refrigerator. Did I have anything saved up? My sister and her husband were struggling with rent. Could I help them out just this once? I told them no every single time. Senior year, I got recruited by a tech startup that had seen my portfolio. They offered me a position that would start after graduation, with a salary that made my student loans look manageable for the first time. I accepted immediately. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA and $90,000 in student debt. My parents came to the ceremony. My father made a speech at the family dinner afterward about how proud he was, how he'd always known I'd make something of myself, how all those late nights studying had paid off. He didn't mention the money. Neither did my mother. Neither did my sister. I started at the company the following week. Turned out I was very, very good at what I did. Within a year, I'd been promoted twice. Within 2 years, I was leading a development team. The startup got acquired by a major corporation when I was 24, and everyone with equity stakes got paid out. My payout was substantial. I paid off my student loans in one lump sum. Then I invested aggressively, kept living below my means, and kept working like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. Every success was proof that they'd been wrong. Every promotion was evidence that I didn't need their money or their approval. By 26, I'd moved to the city and bought a penthouse in a building with a doorman and a view of the river. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, the works. It cost more than my parents would earn in a lifetime. I didn't tell them about it for months. Eventually, my mother found out through some distant cousin who'd seen my social media. She called and asked if the photos were real. I confirmed they were. She said she'd love to visit sometime. I told her I'd think about it. 6 months went by. My sister had a baby. My parents sent photos and kept hinting that I should come visit, meet my nephew, be part of the family again. I sent a gift card and congratulations. Then my mother called and asked directly, could they come visit? They wanted to see where I lived, see how well I was doing. My father missed me. My sister thought it would be good for the family to reconnect. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said yes. We scheduled it for a Saturday afternoon. I told them to arrive at 2. I spent the morning cleaning, even though the place was already immaculate, arranging furniture, making sure everything looked exactly the way I wanted it to look. They arrived 15 minutes early. The doorman called up to confirm, and I told him to send them up. I opened the door before they could knock. My mother gasped when she saw the place. She walked in slowly, taking in the artwork on the walls, the designer furniture, the panoramic windows. My father whistled low and asked how much a place like this cost. My sister, who'd brought her husband and the baby, immediately started photographing everything. We sat in the living room. I offered them drinks. My mother couldn't stop commenting on the view, the finishes, the neighborhood. My father kept asking questions about my job, my salary, my investment portfolio. My sister wanted to know if I had a girlfriend, when I was planning to settle down, whether I'd thought about buying a bigger place. I answered vaguely and let them talk. An hour in, my father leaned back on the couch and smiled. He said he was proud of me, that he'd always known I had it in me to be successful. My mother nodded enthusiastically. My sister said it was amazing what I'd accomplished. Then my father said it. The thing I'd been waiting for. He said that looking back, helping my sister first had been the right choice. That if they'd let me use that money for college, I might have coasted, might not have developed the work ethic that made me successful. That struggle had made me stronger. That everything had worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. My mother agreed. She said that sometimes parents have to make tough decisions, but in the end, everything happens for a reason. My sister smiled and said she was glad we could all be together and move past old disagreements. I set my drink down carefully. I'd imagined this moment for years, rehearsed it in my head 1,000 different ways. But now that it was here, I felt oddly calm. I told them no. They looked confused. My father asked what I meant. I explained it slowly. Helping my sister first hadn't been the right choice. It had been theft. They hadn't made a tough parenting decision. They'd stolen $75,000 that my grandfather had left specifically for me, and they'd done it without asking, without permission, and without any intention of paying it back. My mother started to interrupt, but I kept going. I told them that what had made me successful wasn't their decision to betray me. It was my decision to prove them wrong. Every overnight shift, every instant noodle dinner, every hour I'd spent teaching myself to code instead of sleeping, that was me, not them. They didn't get to take credit for my success when they'd done everything possible to sabotage it. My father's face was turning red. He started to say something about family and respect. I cut him off. I told him I'd invited them here for one reason, so they could see exactly what they'd lost. They'd chosen my sister's wedding over my future, chosen one perfect day over their relationship with me, and now they were sitting in a penthouse they'd never be invited to again, looking at a life they'd never be part of. My sister was crying. She said I was being cruel, that it wasn't her fault, that she'd paid them back the money. I asked when. She went quiet. I asked her again. When exactly had she paid them back $75,000? She admitted she hadn't, that she'd given them a few thousand here and there over the years. But her husband's business had struggled, and they had the baby now, and it wasn't realistic to expect her to pay back that much money. I nodded. I told her that was fine. She didn't have to pay me back. None of them did. I didn't need their money anymore. I didn't need anything from them. My mother asked what I was saying. I told her I was saying goodbye, that this visit was closure, that they could tell people they'd seen my place, that their son was doing well, that everything worked out fine despite what they did. But they wouldn't be coming back. They wouldn't be asking me for money. They wouldn't be expecting me at holidays or family events. We were done. My father stood up. He said I couldn't be serious, that I was throwing away family over something that happened years ago, that I was being vindictive and petty. I stood up too. I told him he was absolutely right. I was being vindictive. I'd spent 8 years becoming vindictive, and now I was rich enough that I didn't have to pretend to forgive people who'd never apologized. Then I walked to the phone on the wall and called down to security. I asked them to come up and escort my guests out of the building. My mother begged. My sister shouted. My father called me every name he could think of. The baby started screaming. Security arrived within 2 minutes. 2 large men in suits, very professional. I told them my guests were leaving and asked them to make sure they made it safely to the street. My father tried one last time. He said I'd regret this, that blood was thicker than water, that I'd end up alone. I told him I'd rather be alone than stolen from. Security escorted them out. I stood in my doorway and watched them go, my mother crying, my sister clutching her baby, my father's face purple with rage. The elevator doors closed on them. I went back inside, locked the door, stood at the window, and watched them emerge onto the street 8 floors below. Watched them argue on the sidewalk. Watched my father gesture angrily at the building. Watched my mother try to call me. Watched my phone light up and go to voicemail. Watched them eventually give up and walk away. Then I sat down on my very expensive couch in my very expensive apartment and felt absolutely nothing. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since I kicked them out. My phone has been a nightmare. My mother called 63 times in the first 2 days. I counted. After I blocked her number, she started calling from other phones. Friends, neighbors, random numbers I didn't recognize. I blocked them all. Then she started emailing. I filtered those to spam. My sister sent me a 5-page letter about how I'd traumatized her baby, how her son would grow up without knowing his uncle, how I was destroying the family. She CC'd every relative we have. Most of them have reached out to tell me I'm being unreasonable. My father showed up at my building 4 days ago. The doorman called up to ask if I wanted to see him. I said no. My father apparently argued for 20 minutes before security threatened to call the police. He hasn't been back since. Yesterday, my uncle called. My father's brother, someone I haven't spoken to in probably 5 years. He told me that family is everything, that my grandfather wouldn't have wanted this, that I'm shaming his memory by refusing to forgive. I asked my uncle if he knew my grandfather had left me that money specifically for college. He said yes. I asked if he knew my parents had stolen it for my sister's wedding. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said that stolen was a strong word, that my parents had made a difficult choice, that my sister's wedding had been important to the whole family. I asked him how much money he'd given my parents for the wedding. He admitted he hadn't given them anything. I asked why not, if it was so important to the whole family. He said that wasn't the point. I told him that was exactly the point. Everyone expected me to sacrifice for family, but nobody else was expected to do the same. Then I hung up. The calls have slowed down now. I think they're realizing I meant what I said. A few cousins have reached out more gently, asking if we can talk, if there's any way to fix this. I've ignored them all. The truth is, I don't feel guilty. I thought I might. I thought that once the anger faded, I'd feel bad about making my mother cry or keeping my sister's kid away from me. But I don't. What I feel is free. Update 2. 2 months now. Things have gotten quieter, but also weirder. My sister is apparently telling people I had a mental breakdown, that I've become obsessed with money and success, and I'm not the person I used to be. Several family friends have reached out expressing concern for my well-being, suggesting therapy, asking if I'm okay. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. My mother sent me a birthday card last week. My birthday isn't for 4 months. Inside, she'd written about how she prays for me every night, how she hopes I'll find peace, how the door is always open when I'm ready to come home. I don't have a home with them. I haven't for 8 years. Work is going incredibly well. I got another promotion, a corner office, a team of 12 people reporting to me. I'm dating someone I met through friends, someone who has nothing to do with my family or my past. When she asked about them, I told her the truth. She didn't try to convince me to reconcile. She just listened. That felt revolutionary. Last week, I did something I've been thinking about for a while. I set up a scholarship fund at State. $50,000 annually for a student who's working full-time while going to school, who comes from a low-income background, who doesn't have family support. The first recipient will be selected next semester. I named it after my grandfather. I haven't told my family about it. I don't plan to. It's not for them. It's for me, and for my grandfather, and for some kid who's going to work overnight shifts and eat instant noodles and wonder if they'll make it. They will, and they won't owe anyone anything for it. That's what my grandfather wanted. That's what I'm making sure happens. My parents stole my future once. I built a better one anyway. And now I'm helping someone else do the same. They can't touch that. They can't take credit for it. They can't claim it was all part of some master plan. It's mine. Finally, completely mine. And I've never felt richer.